Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Modern BioPharma Podcast. Today, we have a special episode for you. I've interviewed 3 different groups, all about the red-hot job market. We talked to a recruiting firm, to a mechanical contracting company, and to a manufacturer. So my goal was to put together a few different types of groups that have a different look at the market and different goals and different even kinds of people that they're trying to hire, and put that together into sort of a composite interview. So we're going to have similar questions for each of them, and we'll do the first question for each of them and then the next question for each of them. There's some variety in there. I couldn't ask the same question to all of them exactly, and there's some uniqueness about each of them that I wanted to cover. But I think it will be a good opportunity to see how different groups are handling the need in the job market right now. So before we get started, just as a quick intro, we got 3 different groups. The first one is a recruiting firm, CK Group. They're out of the UK, and I interviewed Jonathan Hart-Smith. The second group is DECCO. They're a mechanical contracting company here in New England. If you're up here in New England, you probably have heard of them. Kyle Reagan, their CEO, and Bill Burg, sort of their people development person, and does a lot of the training. And then lastly, we did Resilience, who is a new pharma company. They have facilities all over. They're building one here in Boston. And I spoke with Shawn Fitzpatrick and Charlie Maher on site at their new facility. It's still concrete and open walls and stuff when I did it. So that was pretty fun. And I'd love to get some feedback on this. I'd like to do more interviews like this. I think they're interesting. I think a lot of people want to understand what's out there and what they can do in this space. I get a lot of feedback from younger people in the business that they like that kind of thing. So I'd like to hear more about that and maybe what kind of things that are interesting to you so that we can talk more about them. But anyways, don't want to wait any longer. Here's my interviews with all 3 of these companies. Where is your exposure to the pharma job market? Do you work with all sorts of disciplines or just specific ones?
Just thanks for inviting me on. We've been going for 30 years, and we work across the whole span of the life science development process. So we cover markets across US, UK, Switzerland, Ireland, and there's 60 different specialists. So that includes people working right the way through for R&D, through to clinical development, clinical operations, manufacturing, and supply. So that whole kind of end-to-end process. So we've got a really good view of how the market looks and where the bottlenecks are forming.
All right. Hi, guys. We got some guys on from DECCO today. Would you guys introduce yourself real quick so everybody can get to know who you are?
Sure. Kyle Reagan. I'm the owner, CEO of DECCO Inc. in Brookline, New Hampshire, and soon to be Nashua, New Hampshire as well.
And I'm Bill Burg. I'm the Senior Director for Partner Development at DECCO.
Awesome. How long have you guys been working with or at DECCO?
Too long, but the real answer is 27 years now.
And I'm 18 years.
Could one of you just describe your exposure as it stands right now to the pharma job market? I know you guys work in other markets too, but specifically to the pharma market, what's your exposure? What kind of disciplines do you guys work with as a company?
Sure. The pharma market's been a specialty niche for DECCO now for over 20 years. One of the original contractors in New England doing FDA validated projects. So we've, at DECCO, we've got licensed pipe fitters, pipe welders, as well as piping design staff and piping design managers, as well as project managers, estimators, QA, QC, and safety professionals, and all that go along with our field activities.
All right. Hi, Shawn.
Hey, how's it going?
Everybody that's listening, this is Shawn Fitzpatrick. We're here at the new and being built still, in case you can't tell, Resilience facility here in Marlborough, Mass. Very excited to be here. I got a little sneak peek, and we're here to talk to Shawn today about the job market and sort of what's going on. These guys are in the middle of putting up a whole new facility. There's a ton of things going on, whether it's just the construction of the facility, whether it's preparing for the facility being done and putting it all together and getting it running and actually making product. All that stuff is part of the planning that goes into this, and there's a ton of people that they need to have ready to go, onboarding here now, contractors. It's just a lot going on. So that's what we're here to talk to them about today. And so I'm just gonna walk through a bunch of questions with Shawn. So first off, Shawn, what's in your role, if you could just tell us about your role, what's your exposure to the pharma job market? And do you work with all kinds of disciplines, or do you just work with certain types?
So,
I'm gonna take this.
thank you. My responsibilities are in the manufacturing realm. So a lot of the disciplines I work with are focused on the manufacturing side of things. But with that said, I work with a number of my peers to kind of bring in, interview and bring other folks in, from other disciplines like quality, QC, engineering, facilities, and such. So.
Okay, and primarily in the manufacturing itself.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so like the facilities, is that a whole other group, or do you have part in that as well?
The facilities group.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the facilities group. We have a head of facilities and engineering, and so
Okay.
he has oversight of the facilities and engineering functions at the site.
Okay, excellent. All right. So as you look out into the market right now, if I was to pick like the top three, what would be your top three areas of need in that pharma space right now? Whether it's a job type or even a specific area within the market, like a CMO versus a manufacturer versus what are the things that you're seeing? Top three areas of need in the market right now.
So I think I'd try and answer that question in two ways. What we're seeing kind of anecdotally day to day at the moment, but also what we're envisioning the market to look like over the coming months, years. So right now, we run a survey every month and looking at kind of what's hot at the moment. And what we've seen since the beginning of the year is the CMC market has quadrupled in demand since the beginning of the year. There's people aren't moving as much and demand is increasing. And that's an area which is really hot right now.
CMC, could you just define CMC?
Yeah, so the control of manufacturing of drugs. So that's a market that covers, can be a regulatory component, could be manufacturing, but that's an area that we are really seeing a massive demand. Another one as well that is ongoing, which is the kind of the biological sciences. I know that's a bit of a catch-all term, but if you look at any of the areas we drill down into specifics, so the antibody scientist market, that's a third up since the beginning of the year. The microbiologist part of that space is really ballooned since January. January, there's about 2,000 live vacancies being advertised on LinkedIn in the Massachusetts area. In August, it was just shy of 4,000. So that's really ballooning in terms of demand. And then an ongoing area that seems to never let up is the reg affairs market. There's always a lot of demand there and not much movement in the market. So, it's always been a candidate-driven market, really. Interestingly as well, if you look at what's the work that the Mass Bio team have done about looking at what the future's holding as well, that biological sciences and research scientist space is expected to continue to grow and be a big demand in the Massachusetts space over the next, X many years. But also there's a kind of a good lead indicator that the industrial engineering market is growing, which shows that there's this kind of shift towards a real kind of emphasis on manufacturing. And I think that's one of the areas where we're going to see bottlenecks form as well over the next couple of years, because that's going to be something that's going to continue to grow.
So as you guys look out into the pharma market right now, what are you seeing as maybe that this is related to what you guys do, but if you want to talk more broadly, that's fine. What are your top three areas of need in the pharma job market right now?
So we base our entire capacity around the amount of welders and fitters that we have licensed, particularly in Massachusetts, licensed welders and fitters, and the work that they can produce in the field. Our overhead is built off of that model. So we've got a field installation division called DECCO Construction. We've got DECCO Fab, which does custom fabrication, assemblies, tubing, and skids. And we've got a service group called DECCO Serve. So the shortage we've seen is due to the regulatory environment in the state of Massachusetts as it relates to licensing, is licensed welders and fitters in order to perform the work in the field.
And we understand the need for that, from a safety perspective, that's the whole reason for licensure. But it does really restrict on who we can bring in. Back in the, air quotes, the old days, we would be able to go on to the were called hot sheets, and we could bring in skilled trades from around the country to come complete our projects. But with the licensure, it really restricts how we can do that and how quickly we can bring those people in.
So what are right now, if you could put it into a category, what do you think are your top 3 areas of need that you see in the pharma market right now? Maybe not even here, maybe just across the market. Additionally, in your role right now, starting up this facility, what are the top 3 areas of need?
So something I think about a lot, because I think we're trying to hire quickly. We're trying to get this facility online by Q3 of next year. And so some of those areas of need things that keep me up at night, I say, would be kind of your engineering roles. I think we need some help in the engineering side of things. Process engineering, automation engineering is very, very tight right now. And on the manufacturing front, it's finding the right talent with the appropriate experience. So things around gene therapy, viral vector manufacturing, it's relatively new to the industry. So there's a fair amount of, I'd say, talent out there that has other types of experience that translate nicely over, but trying to find that core level experience has been a challenge.
Okay. So how would you prioritize whether you're hiring, say, a process engineer, an automation engineer? How would you prioritize hiring them as a full-time employee versus hiring them on as a contractor? Do you have like a way of determining how that goes?
In some instances, I think for anybody that's starting up a facility, sometimes you have to rely on contractors to kind of help bring a facility online with the intention to, from maintaining the facility, the idea would be to have that talent on site, not necessarily a contractor that would be here for a set period of time and then peel off. You lose some of that expertise.
So how have you seen the market change for a job seeker? So the market's changing in different ways, but specifically for a job seeker, how have you seen it change in the last year?
So over the last 12 months, I think it's been quite a confusing time if you're a job seeker well, anywhere in the world, but thinking more specifically around kind of the Boston area where we do a lot of work. At the start of the pandemic, I think it was really, really challenging. The funding seemed to stop quite quickly. It was quite polarized. Either companies had a lot of money or not much, and that inevitably had an impact on whether they were hiring or indeed sometimes letting people go as well. So I think that was quite a tough time. But what we've seen since the beginning of this year is that really bounced back. I mean, I think you've seen this Bloomberg report the other day that in the whole of last year there was just under $6 billion worth of venture capital funding in the area, and in the first quarter of this year it was $4.5 billion. So nearly as much in one quarter. And that's really meant that right now there's been this big boom in demand for people. And so if you're a job seeker, actually it could be quite confusing because you've had this, real lull followed by this huge ballooning in demand. And so if you were looking for work and have been looking for work, you might know if you're on foot or horseback at the moment because it's so changeable so quickly. So I think that's the kind of the wider market. But in terms of behaviours, actually, I think it's a good time to be, well, because of that ballooning demand, it's a great time to be looking for work. It's really shifted to be a candidate-driven market. Some companies cut a bit too hard, and now they're kind of trying to rebuild. So that's elevated some demand. Also, this extra investment has meant that there's a bigger demand as well. So if you're looking for work at the moment, now's a great time to be looking because it is a candidate-driven market. You've got much more choice. You've got much more say about the process. And I think coupled with that, the actual recruitment process as well has changed. And it's a lot more flexible. Companies have had to be a lot more innovative with how they go about doing the recruitment process. And that's actually made it a little bit easier for people to go through the recruitment process and get the information they need to make an informed choice about where they're going to go.
How have you seen the job market change over the last year? I guess up here in New England is where we're at. So what have you guys seen?
Well, at DECCO, we have seen now, I guess, a broader group of people wanting to get into the trades. One of the hurdles that we have been working on or dealing with is the stigma that had been placed on tradespeople versus going to college, and that limited the job seekers that were coming into our market. And we were making inroads with that, so we're getting more people out of the schools, but we're also now getting a lot of recommendations and people wanting to switch careers and to get into what we're doing. So that I think is probably one of the biggest changes. The other is the limitation on people. This year especially, I've seen the amount of resumes and inquiries as far as getting into the trades has decreased from last year. And now we're actually having to reach out more to bring in trades.
Yeah, I'll kind of add and echo a bit of that. Is Massachusetts is going through, I think, a term that's been used in the Commonwealth is an unemployment crisis, because there's segments of the job markets across the Commonwealth that were shut down and are never going to open up again. Hospitality comes to mind. So what we've done is we've tried to get aggressive to reach out to those people that were displaced by these shutdowns and the pandemic, and introduce the concept of a career in construction, which, 2 years ago, they may have never considered as something that would work for them and their families. We intentionally introduced DECCO to them in an opportunity for a career in construction, not a job. A job, one of the stigmas in construction in the past was it's seasonal, it's dangerous, it's not for me, it's for the people that don't go to school.
Yeah.
Some of the smartest people I talk to on a daily basis at DECCO are under weld hoods. And they made a conscious choice. They're not going to school just because they don't like it, not because they're not smart. They're smarter than most of their friends that went on to college. They just don't like school, and they like to earn money. So a career in construction that they found now after some, 2, 3, 5, 10, 25, 30 years of doing it, is they've met all those boxes. They've earned money from themselves, as family. It's not seasonal work. It is a career in construction. We work hard, and Bill oversees our career path program. So they understand, we have people that get into leadership for us. We have other people that don't want to get into leadership. They don't want the responsibility of computers and job site safety and all those things that relates to leadership and supervision. They quote unquote just want to fit pipe or just weld. And we offer great career paths for those folks that want to do that as well, up to and including getting them into retirement. As some of the most accomplished craftspeople, pipe fitters and pipe welders that the industry has. So, the notion that construction has a career path is something new that we've had to create and kind of plant that seed in people's minds so that they understand that you can come to a place like DECCO and you can retire from a place like DECCO without seasonal layoffs. We work hard. We have not had a layoff now in how many years?
I want to say
Afraid to say it.
Yeah.
We don't want to break the spell. So, we do not want to lay people off because, once we get them in and we train them up and they go through our training programs, they're such a specialty trade that we rely on their skills.
Over the last year, COVID, crazy, right? Everything's been kind of nuts for the last year and a half.
Yes.
It feels like forever. So the job market has changed a lot. We didn't really know when it all started. Everybody's like, am I going to lose my job? Right? I think everybody sort of had that initial, and then since then, it's not been that way. Certainly not in this market. So when you look at the job market that's out there and the people that you're looking to hire and bring on into your facility and what you guys are doing, what do you think are the big things that have changed?
So some things that have changed over the, I'd say year and a half or so, especially with COVID. I think things that we had to change our ways of working in a lot of ways, right? So a lot of times I was working in my basement trying to design a facility for my previous employer while I'm, right now we're trying to do some level of we're just coming back on site. We're hopefully coming out of the other end of things with COVID. But yeah, the challenges there. Some changes, I guess, also, I think is kind of what you're getting at as well, right? So some changes that I've seen are some workforces going with some sort of remote access to some remote working, some blend of that. It's extremely difficult to do from an operations standpoint. So if you're in manufacturing, you kind of need to be here to manufacture the product, similar with some of the support roles. But other types of administrative type roles that support those functions, from regulatory perhaps or other administrative type roles, you're seeing some levels of blending of like remote working along with kind of some office.
Okay, so Shawn, so as an employer, what are some things that you're doing? What are some ways that you're recruiting and onboarding to get new talent into your organization, maybe that are different than you've done before?
So certainly we have a lot of methods on kind of recruiting and onboarding. So I think we still utilize a lot of your traditional methods of from a recruiting standpoint. You have your in-house recruiters, you have potential third parties that you partner with to try and bring in folks. One thing that has significantly changed is pretty much all interviews that I've done to date over the last year have been all virtual. It's no more kind of face-to-face. Hopefully we'll get back there, but it's been all virtual, kind of Zoom or Teams or what other platforms that are out there. So that's been something that's been new. It's a little bit of adjustment. You still get to see a face-to-face, but for me, it's a little different kind of being in the same room with somebody.
Right. Yeah, you don't get to do that I get to shake your hand and see,
right.
like that kind of a funny feel, yeah. So what kind of things are you starting to see employers do to attract the new talent and onboard them? So we know it's a candidate-driven market. So if it's a candidate-driven market, they have to compete that much harder to get somebody. So is it like speed, or is it different kinds of benefits, or what kinds of things are they doing to get new talent in to fill all these open positions that they have across the space?
So really question, and one we get asked a lot at the moment about how can I make sure I'm going to get the right person, and those that are succeeding are definitely seeing that it is a race to get the right people. So their processes are quick. I mean, if you've seen any of the kind of the tips that we do online, we always talk about a quick and efficient recruitment process. And those that are doing that, are getting the applications reviewed quickly by the relevant people, booking time in early to interview, using technology to do it quite quickly. So not insisting on dragging people into their offices or their labs, trying to use video technology, getting through that process quickly and efficiently. They're winning in that. Another thing as well is that we're seeing those that are spending the time to sell the opportunity. We're seeing people get 2, 3, 4 job offers at the same time. And those companies that have invested the time and effort in training their staff to really present the opportunity in its best light, talk to not just the money, but also why is it a good place to work? What sort of science they're doing that's different, and what's the culture like? All those sorts of things, really trying to kind of pitch the opportunity to people and making sure that they can see that it's the right type of working environment for them as well. So speed, selling the job, looking outside what's the normal places they've looked. So what worked a year or two ago is not working right now in terms of finding the right people. So we've got some clients that are using agencies or recruitment companies for the very first time, because putting an advert out and waiting for people to apply just isn't working now. So I say speed, selling the job, looking outside the normal pool, and then offering out flexibility. So you talked there about working practices, giving people the opportunity to have a bit of a better work-life balance. That's really working. And then finally, I am seeing good sign-on bonuses for people that I haven't seen before. And I think that's not everybody's doing that. So I wouldn't necessarily say right, everyone's got to go out and start throwing cash at people. But we are starting to see more of that than we've ever seen before.
All right. So if you were talking to a job seeker, now we know that they kind of have the upper hand right now in the market.
Yeah.
But if you were to tell them what's the one thing that they could do to stand out and be that much more likely to get the opportunity that they really want, what would that be?
I would turn that slightly on its head and say that actually, well, I'd say there's two things, right? So number one is take the opportunity now, because it is your time, to be able to be selected. But secondly, actually, because it is in your interest at the moment to make sure you make the right choice next, actually remember you can be selective about where you go. So that doesn't answer your question, Jesse, because actually the ball is in your court at the moment if you are looking for a new role. But what I'd say is actually remember that, and remember it's a two-way process. It is as much for you to find out about why you might want to work for a company as it is for somebody to select you to join them.
All right. So as an employer in the trades here, how are you guys currently successfully recruiting and onboarding new talent into your organization?
Well, we've gotten involved with the trade schools is one of the biggest things we've done, because we found we have to reach out to the students before they've made decisions on their careers and expose them to the opportunities. But not only expose them is to expose their parents to these opportunities and the potential careers that these students could have. So we're very involved with the schools. We're on the local trade schools. We're on the advisory boards. We attend different recruiting events, both in New Hampshire and Massachusetts. And once we get them in, once we bring them in, as Kyle had said before, we expose them to DECCO. And our apprenticeship program is probably our biggest asset for bringing people in, because we have such a need for trades. There's not enough skilled trades out there. So we consciously made a decision 5 years ago that the way we're going to grow DECCO is from within, it being our apprenticeship program. So we pretty much doubled the size of it back then by bringing in larger classes. And when we bring them in, so when you bring them in, of course, they're green, they have no experience. You're going to send them out in the field. They don't know the terminology or even how a construction site works. So we developed what we refer to as the boot camp. As a matter of fact, Kyle's wearing one of the shirts from this year's boot camp. And we bring in candidates on what we call career day. We interview them and we narrow it down to whatever class size we're going to have. And we bring them back and we spend their first 3 weeks with DECCO or spent here at the shop with supervisors, tradespeople, and also our pipe fitting instructors. They come in and they expose them to pretty much all the different tasks that we'll do, whether it's the core drilling, pipe preparation, a little bit of welding, and go through all that so that on day one, that they can be productive. So if someone says, go grab a Sawzall or a piece of Unistrut, they know what they're talking about. So they're able to be productive.
So what's the number one thing you would encourage a job seeker in this space to do to maximize their ability to get in front of an opportunity? You guys have different kinds of opportunities there. You've talked about a whole bunch, whether it's, being an actual welder or if you're out, design with AutoCAD, right? There's all kinds of places in between. So what would you recommend somebody do?
It's an interesting question, because in the contractor world, in our space, there aren't many job seekers. Because as soon as you look, you usually get a job. I would almost frame it differently in the sense that you really have to be open to and embrace a career in construction and understand the elements we've already talked about, which is that it's not seasonal, it is dangerous, but there are enough precautions we have in place, from daily toolbox talk, to safe plans of action, to the PPE we're wearing, to the current construction environment. We've worked very hard to make it as safe as it can be environment, and it is. I'm not even going to say it, but we have not had any lost time accidents because of the things we have, which is pre-job planning, pre-task planning, all the things that go into keeping our work environment safe. So it's really getting job seekers to accept construction and a career in construction as a viable, I'll even go beyond viable, as an excellent career opportunity, because the environment, whether you're on your tools or you're in the office in a support role, or you're in a QA/QC role, or in a safety role, or in a design engineer role, or in an estimating role, or in a project engineering role, project management role. All those things are vital to what we do. And when you think about what a construction company does, it touches on all those things, from a finance department to a QC department, safety department, marketing, sales, estimating, client management, service, construction, fabrication, manufacturing, all those things. That all exists under DECCO's roof. So you think about that, and all the people that generally want to, they have a marketing degree, they want to get a marketing. Are they going to seek a construction company? I'm not sure. I would hope people that are going to listen to this podcast consider a career in construction and the opportunities that are available within construction. Certainly in the trades, two of the vice presidents of DECCO right now came to DECCO through our apprentice program. So yeah, right now they're vice presidents and they're running business units and business and divisions of DECCO. But 20, 25 years ago, they were here as apprentices trying to learn the trade. And they did that. And the career opportunities available to those folks are real and they're life-changing, and people should consider that.
So what's something that you would encourage a job seeker right now to do to find the perfect spot for them?
That's a good question. So some things that I would recommend to job seekers are reach out to people. I think if you let's say you've been in the industry a little while, then you know some people. Let's say you're interested in a potential company, take a look on LinkedIn, see if you know somebody there. Reach out that way. Other ways to do that are reach out to somebody you don't even know, and just kind of reach out by LinkedIn. Maybe try and make a connection, but don't just do a blanket connection of connect. But maybe write a nice note to say, hey, I'd love to connect. Love to have a chat over Zoom or coffee, just to talk a little bit about potential opportunities at a particular company.
Right. It's funny with all of the changes we've had with going online versus offline. I wonder if maybe people are just more receptive to some of those online reach outs than maybe they were 2 years ago. I seem to see it a little bit more, and we're a little bit more desperate to find people. So maybe you're a little bit more receptive to that than you were 2 years ago.
I'm getting that same sense.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we've talked about the job seeker. So what would be the number one thing that you would tell an employer or a hiring manager, whoever's, out there looking for talent, probably not your competition, but just the, so what would you tell them to work on to attract the right talent to their organization?
So firstly, kind of refer back to something we talked about earlier about what's working for companies that are kind of winning that war for talent. So, moving quickly and so on and so forth. But and I'm going to take it for granted that somebody has done the benchmarking and making sure that they're putting compelling offers to people. But I think the one thing that we don't see everybody do is selling the opportunity. And I'd say, if you're in talent acquisition or you're in the C-suite and you're encouraging the people that are interviewing to engage with candidates, take some time to put some proper training into, or at least having a decent conversation with them around how you want to pitch the organization. So making sure that everybody that walks either out of the building or comes off the Zoom call, whatever it might be, know why it's a good place to work. They need to know that it's not just what are my duties. Actually, what's it like to work there? What are the people like? What sort of science are you doing? What impact are you making on society or the patients that you serve? Those sorts of things are what's going to make the difference between coming to you or going somewhere else. And taking time to actually make that pitch, I think, is really important.
One of my favorite podcasts and personalities in the whole world is Mike Rowe. Yeah. So I've always wondered if he's like everybody's favorite blue collar guy. I'm wondering if he actually is among those that are doing the work. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, everybody jokes around with Mike Rowe, jokes around, but he has actually become very involved with getting the trades and getting the word about getting into the trades and the blue collar careers. He has a whole bunch of videos that are used in the schools right now. So
has he ever come up to New Hampshire and worked with you guys or anything?
He has, and as part of my involvement at ABC, we considered reaching out to him, but it's a big ask.
Yeah.
Would love to. His name comes up often. I would say one of his biggest contributions is, he's figured out a way to effectively communicate with the parents of kids that are in high school that don't like school. I talked about that group.
Mm-hmm.
In the past, there was a stigma of, then they're dumb or they're stupid. And they all wanted to talk about Johnny or Mary or going on to some certain college name here. And he's eliminated that stigma that, my kid wants to get into the trades. And that's fantastic. I think he's sort of pulled the veil away from what I was talking about in terms of a career in construction, that, there are jobs that are great paying jobs, great benefits, career path opportunities, and they're in the construction trades and don't require a 4-year college degree.
Mm-hmm. So when somebody thinks of working for a pipe fitter, they've never even heard that word. So they've maybe heard of being a welder, right? So they have a picture of a guy in a helmet and a bunch of sparks flying when they're young, right? Yeah. And that has to do with a bridge or maybe a car, or you know what I mean? They have everybody anchors on a few different things for these kind of roles. So how do you guys expose them at a young age to what it is that you guys are doing?
Well, let me jump in before Bill answers that question specifically. I'll give you a quick anecdotal experience. So we had a person come in through our boot camp program. So the boot camp is a pre-apprentice boot camp. So it's effectively it used to be 4 weeks. Now it's 3 weeks of paid training for the things we talked about. Once that's complete, they go into the field and then they begin Apprentice 1 classes, which start in September. It runs like a school year. So that is better definition on how the boot camp works. So its intended purpose is to train people before they enter the apprentice program, so they're safer and they're more effective when they show up on actual job sites. But we had a fellow that came into the company through the boot camp, went through the apprentice classes, obtained his license in Massachusetts, and is now in our piping design group. And he spent this past year, he spent time in our piping design group doing piping design to help build the vaccines for Moderna. So you talk about, was that a career path he considered when he was in high school 5 years ago? Probably not. But look at where his career has taken him and what he's doing now. And, it's pretty humbling when you look at some of the project resumes DECCO gets involved in, and the things, what's always rewarding to us is, we complete these projects, and usually it's at the completion of the projects, in meetings with owners and with the engineering houses and the things that the projects, what they're ultimately going to do. And in biopharmaceutical world, that's usually providing, life-changing or life-saving medicines or therapeutics to a globe that, you think, well, this is just a project and I'm just welding a Wi-Fi line or a clean steam line. And when you see what ultimately the product is that it's going to deliver and the impact it's going to have on, not to be too sensationalistic, on the globe, it changes people, because the kid I just talked about, he never considered he was going to be doing piping design to produce a vaccine that was going to help the world. But guess what? He did.
That's pretty awesome. You have anything to add, Bill?
Yeah, well, back to the question, how do we expose them to that? Well, the kids in the schools, we go in, and like you had said, the typical person would think of a welder, they think of flames and sparks and smoke all over the place. But a big majority of the welding that we do, especially in the biopharmaceutical world, doesn't have any of those sparks, doesn't have any of that smoke, and is actually run by a computer. And I went to speak at a school 2 years ago as part of their STEM program about this particular type of welding. It does not sound too technical, but it's an automated autogenous weld, meaning that it's a fusion weld and it's done through a computer. So what happens is we go in, and that's the first thing I ask them. What do you think about when you think of welding? And everybody says the flame and the sparks. And then I show them this orbital welding process that we use, and it involves some science, because you do have to know some metallurgy. You have to know about electricity, magnetic fields. You have to know a little bit about gases. So there's some science in there. And then the power source for this is a computer, and they're putting in a program, they're programming that. So they have to have some computer skills with it. And additionally, they need math, because there's different pressures for gases and speeds for rotation of the weld head and everything. So it all ties together, and it really is an eye opener, not only for the students, but for the teachers as well as the parents who've never seen anything like this. And that sparks a lot of interest, because all of a sudden now it's like we keep talking about, it's not this dark, dirty, smoky, unsafe career path. This is something, that is going to take some work to get and to work in the plant. So we do that. And then the other part we do when we go into the schools or to any of these recruiting or different events that we go to is we have a presentation, and we talk about DECCO, we talk about the career paths, we talk about earning potential. And again, that's to expose not only the students to the trades, to the field that we're in, but to educate the parents and the educators too. Because, and this kind of goes off the topic a little bit of the question, but that was the big hurdle for the trades, and has created this labor shortage that we have. The administrators, the teachers, and the parents, because of that stigma on this, and everybody pushing to college. And when I talk, to at the schools, and I tell them, we have welders that are well into the six figures on their earning income. And one of the jokes that I always use is go to a construction parking lot and take a look and see, what do you see? It's all brand new trucks, all brand new. That's right. There's no more the beat up Chevys out there. And that's the reason, is because of the potential that's there for them.
All right. So Jonathan, so you guys are a search firm or a talent firm. There's all these different things that, companies like yours call themselves, but ultimately you guys specialize in going out and finding people for companies based on the job description or any number of things. Now, most companies have an HR person, hiring managers. They're busy looking for new talent external to what they may have internal already. What's the big advantage of going to a search firm instead of just doing it in-house? What do you offer to this space?
That's a really good question. And actually, I think there's a lot of mileage in doing it yourself. Now, I'm not trying to do us out of work there, but if you are looking for a specialist, if you're in HR or in your talent acquisition internally, you might have to wear a lot of different hats. You might be looking for somebody in administration one day, finance another, and the next day you're looking for somebody who's really kind of niche industrial engineer. And actually, trying to juggle all those things can be quite challenging. But the difference between kind of doing it yourself and coming out to a firm like us is that we have groups of specialists. That's all they do every day. So their network is there straight away. So firstly, it's speed. And secondly, it's who's in the market already. And thirdly, it's that market knowledge. If you are just coming to recruit an industrial engineer or an antibody scientist, and it's the first time you've done it in 6 or 12 months, your market knowledge might be slightly out of kilter with what it's like at the minute. And in the last 12 months, it's been really turbulent. So understanding what the market pressures are like right here, right now, is all our team do. And so we can provide that advice and that insight that make it a little bit easier, I think, to actually onboard that right person. So there's a whole bunch of reasons, but I think the speed of the network that we have make a big difference to companies, particularly when you're really trying to compete in a market that is candidate driven.
So I got Charlie Maher on here. He's the project director here at the site and a senior director at Resilience, because Resilience has lots of different sites now. Very, very exciting. What I want to ask you, Charlie, is could you just tell me what makes Resilience different as a manufacturer compared to other pharma manufacturers? We even got some photo bombs here coming through. I like this. This was scripted. All right, here you go. Don't squeeze too hard.
Excellent. Well, to put it in a nutshell, we're starting with a blank slate to do something completely new, change the way medicines are made. And really, it starts off with putting a great team together, with supported with excellent investment, to be able to field the best technology and the best minds in the industry. And this company was founded in the middle of the pandemic, focused on solving the problem about the fact that there isn't enough capacity around advanced manufacturing for cell and gene therapy. And as a result, a lot of investment has come together. Great facilities like this are being built and renovated to be able to create that capacity. And what we are doing is actually not only just manufacturing medicines, but we're actually changing the way that medicines are made through digitization. So not only are we actually physically manufacturing using the most advanced technologies, but we're also developing digital twins to be able to develop that same product in a virtual way, to collect all the information throughout the development, clinical, and commercial manufacturing, to be able to have a very complete description of that and be able to advance from ideas through clinical through commercial faster, and being able to have better quality in the medicines we make.
Excellent. Thanks again for joining us on today's Modern BioPharma Podcast episode. We're glad you're able to join us. If you have any questions about any of the companies that I had on here today, you can reach them via the links that will be in the show notes, or you can reach out to me direct. And as always, if you have any suggestions or any ideas for future podcast episodes, please reach out to me, send me a note, hit me up on LinkedIn. Would love to find out what you think would be good for our audience to see and hear and learn about. Look forward to seeing you guys on the next episode.